Hey there, my fellow skeptics. Welcome back to another episode of Ghosts in the Machine. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the Amityville horror case. And not the whole case. Don't worry, I'm not going to rehash the entire thing and go into how it was a hoax, because it was. I'm going to go into actual two photographs we're going to look at, which is really the only physical evidence that has ever come out of this case. Now, we're talking about at first there was 28 days where all this weird horror, like paranormal, poltergeist, demonic stuff that was going on in this house, according to George and Kathy Lutz. And they ranged from anything from toilet bowls turning black, like the porcelain turning black, the 250-pound front door, which wasn't 250 pounds, but that got ripped off its hinges and was hanging by one hinge. There was green slime coming from the walls and from keyholes. There was the banister on the second floor was ripped out. None of this stuff was documented. Like, yeah, they told this story. They put it in a book, a not so scary book, but basically there's no photographs of all this damage. There's no video. And we know that I'm talking about 1975 here, so it's like video wasn't common for everyone, but they did have 8mm film. We see that there are some home movies that I've seen where Kathy Lutz is in the kitchen, she's making up the dining room table and stuff like that. So I know they at least had access to a camera, an 8mm camera, but they also had family pictures around the house of different rooms. So we know that they had a camera, but they never bothered to take pictures of anything. In this episode, we're gonna dive into the two photographs that came out of this that allegedly show evidence of paranormal activity here. But first, if you're not familiar with the case, which I mean, if you're watching this, you probably have some idea, but let me give you the Cliff Notes version of the timeline. All right, so in 1965, I believe June of that year, Ronald DeFeo Sr. and Louise DeFeo, they purchased a house at 112 Ocean Drive, which is in Amityville, New York. They purchased that house, and then sadly, 9 years later, their oldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was 23 at the time, he shot and killed 6 members of his family. Now, there's still questions about whether he acted alone or if he had accomplices. We're not going to get into that. But anyway, he was convicted of all 6 accounts, and he served time until he eventually died in jail in March of 2021. December 18th, 1975, George and Kathy Lutz move into the house at 112 Ocean Drive. They move into the house. They had just purchased it for $80,000. That's a pretty sweet deal. You know, it's a huge house, 3 floors. It's got a boathouse, driveway, garage. It's got a pool. That was a sweet deal. So they allegedly had a Catholic priest come out, and that's to bless the house. And that's where we get the whole get out. Yeah, that we get that sound effect. We get that going in, which is famous by the movie, but apparently it never happened. All right. Skipping ahead, 28 days later, January 14th of 1976, they flee the house, citing events too frightening to recount. That is until they made a book deal and, you know, the movie deal. March 6th, 1976, they have an investigation at the house, and it's headed up by Ed and Lorraine Warren. They have a news crew from Channel 5 in there with, I think they had who they have. They had a bunch of people here. Let me check my notes. Marvin Scott, who was a news anchor. They had Lorana Didio, who was also a reporter. They had Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know, known exploiters and hoaxers. They had Jerry Salvin, I'm sorry, from Duke University, which was actually the Ryan Institute. I don't think they were associated with Duke University at that time. I think they had already separated. They had a couple people from the New York Psychical Research Center. They had a few other psychics there. And then they had an assistant named Paul Bartz, who was also there. People, we're going to get into that in a little bit because that's the main focus of our investigation. But continue on with the timeline. There was, let's see, in 1976, August 30th, the Lutzes returned the house to the bank because they weren't paying the mortgage. They didn't want it anymore. And so they returned to the bank. March 18th, 1977, Jim and Barbara Cromartie, I hope I'm saying that right, Cromartie, purchased the house from the bank and never reported any activity. Skip ahead a few years to 1987, Peter and Jeanne O'Neill purchased the house, and that's who changed the attic windows from the evil eye looking windows, which are really cool, to square windows. And then they reported no activity. And then in 1997, Brian Wilson purchased the house, and he renovated the property significantly, and also reported absolutely no activity. So it's all centered around the Lutzes. And what I really want to get into is the photographs. So I mentioned there's 2 photographs that came out of this 28 days, or not even a 28 days, because it was beyond that. It came out of the March 6th, 1976 investigation, and that's what I want to focus on here. All right, so the first photo we're going to look at is the Padre Pio photograph, and I'm going to put it up on screen here. There it is. So what we have here, these were taken on March 6th, and there was a photographer named Eugene Campbell. And I believe he took all the photographs on this night because they're all in black and white. They're all 35 millimeter prints, obviously, because we didn't have digital cameras at the time. But it doesn't seem like anyone else bothered to bring a camera. I've never seen other photos from this night, except from the news crew. And then from this guy, Eugene Campbell, who I could not contact. I couldn't get in touch with him. So what are we looking at here? We have Lorraine Warren in the middle here. She is talking to this gentleman, and I forget his name. I totally forget his name. I'm not sure who he is. But on the side here, this guy is Paul Bartz. We're going to get back to him in a couple minutes. But as I said, this is the Padre Pio photograph. And the story is that Lorraine was carrying a little card, and I'll insert a picture of it here. She was carrying this little prayer card that had Padre Pio, a picture of him on the front, and that she was using it as protection because she's very, very Catholic, very, very, very heavily into into Catholicism. But she claimed that after seeing this picture, that Padre Pio had visited her, had made an appearance here to let her know that she was being protected. And there's a couple things about this. This is the picture that she's talking about. And at first glance, you're probably like, I don't see like an apparition. I don't see a ghost. I don't see an extra guy. There's 2 guys in the photo. I don't see another guy. So what's going on? She claims that right up here in this ear, the ear of the dead moose, the moose head that's hanging on the wall, is where Padre Pio is manifesting. So she says, she's saying that this right here, this figure, is what is Padre Pio. And I'll put another picture up here of the good Padre so you can see. Now, Padre Pio, if you don't know who he is, he was an Italian Franciscan friar. He was also claimed to have the wounds of the stigmata, which probably, I mean, as far as I could read, the research I could find, it was probably a hoax and caused by chemical burns, self-inflicted, that he made to look like stigmata. But anyway, he was ordained a saint by the Catholic Church, and so now he's Saint Padre Pio, and that's Lorraine's like go-to. All right, so back to the picture. So yeah, later on, after the investigation, much later, she made claims that this was Padre Pio making an appearance. There's a few things that I want to bring up in this. Is that one, Lorraine claims to be a clairvoyant, some kind of psychic medium, where she talks to spirits, she can sense spirits and all this stuff. She said that pretty much her entire career. Yet this I guess appearance of a saint in this house of evil is something that she didn't realize. She didn't recognize it. She didn't bring it up. There's no notes. There's no recordings of her saying, "Oh yes, I feel a presence of Padre Pio here." There's nothing like that that I could find. And there's no mention until after the film was developed and that she was able to see it. And from my point of view, she was anomaly hunting, which is what really, really biased people do, like Lorraine and Ed Warren, because they're hugely, hugely biased people. But when you start looking at pictures specifically to find something to support your belief, you look for any kind of um little detail, or in this case pareidolia. Because I mean, this is look at this picture again, and I'm going to give you a close-up here. So what we're seeing here is actually the ear, and I'm going to trace it here. I'm going to trace it. Here's the ear. And it's hard because it's black and white, and I get that because I mean that the tones and the shading and the grayscale kind of really blend together, and I couldn't find a better picture of this, a higher resolution. So basically the ear starts over here and the other side is right here, and we see the ear travel up here and go along here. There's a little fur sticking out, go up to the tip here. This dark line is actually a hard shadow from this horn going onto the back of the ear. And then this shady part here, I mean, it looks like part of the ear, but it's actually a shadow of the ear on the antlers on the other side. So there is no apparition. This is not a profile of a ghost. And if it was, then it's a very thin profile, because we're always, I mean, I'm imagining this is the forehead, this is the nose, and then this is the beard, but then the whole back of his head is missing. So I don't think yeah, not an apparition. So moving on, I put up another moose's head here, and I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to get some kind of perspective. This one that I found somewhere else, just to trace. You can see this flap in the ear right here, and you can also see it in this other moose head here. And this is just for comparison, kind of goofing around, but I mean, showing that, hey, you know what? If you look at other pictures of other like moose heads or live moose that's walking around, you can see the similar designs in their ear and compare. This is nothing special, and I'm almost embarrassed that I spent time on this, but it's something that comes up time and time again. Every time I talk about the Amityville Horror, when people come up to me at conventions or during my live broadcasts every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, now free plug, they ask me about the two photos, the one that we're going to go to next, which is the Ghost Boy, and then this one, the apparition of Padre Pio. You know, is it real? No, it's not. It's not. It's a dead moose's ear. That's it. And I'm not going to spend any more time on this. All right, so the next picture we're going to get into is the most famous picture that came out of this. It's the Demon Boy picture, or Ghost Boy picture, depending, because I've searched for it both ways and it comes up to the same picture. So I'm going to pop this on screen so you guys can see. So the story behind this is that the photographer that was there that night on March 6th, he had set up a camera on a timer. And I don't know what kind of timer. I don't know if it was a remote timer or if he just came up and snapped a picture every so often. I'm not sure, because those details are lost. But basically, the guy set up a camera on the second floor landing, which is, this is what you're seeing, the second floor. The room, this is a bathroom. This is a closet, like a towel closet. And then this is Missy's room, which was the daughter, the Lutz's daughter. And then the sewing room is off right next to it here. So Gene Campbell set up a camera in the corner here on the landing, and he set it up with many rolls of film. And that's a common description. That's a common story element, that many rolls of film were shot, many rolls of infrared film. And that's important. That's an important detail, because he switched from regular black and white film to infrared black and white film, which comes with its own problems, because it's very hard to load, because you really have to, it's got to be almost complete darkness to load infrared film into a camera, or you ruin it. And so there's issues with that. But there was also a cheaper version a lower grade kind of infrared film that was also available, where you could do it in very low light, and that's probably what was used here. But anyway, he set it up and he took a whole bunch of pictures. Like I said, I only saw about 6 different images from that roll of film, but it's constantly described as many rolls of film. And I think Ed Warren says something about there was 40 some pictures taken, or 40 some copies of this view that you see here. Anyway, so if you look right over the banister here, you can see what looks like a head, and I'll give you a closer view. That's a little bit better, a little bit more contrast here. So the majority of paranormal people, I guess the believers in this this story, believe that this is the ghost of little Johnny DeFeo, which was one of the boys of the DeFeo family that was killed. And there's, you see a portrait of him. This is not a photograph. This is a painted portrait. But they compare it to the face of the boy, and they keep saying that that's him. And this is the, I guess, the holy grail of evidence that came out of this entire case. The problem here is, well, there's several problems here. First of all, is that I don't think these two kids look alike. I mean, it looks like a kid, it looks like a young face, but we're also dealing with a very grainy photograph. It's not a great photograph at all. When you try to get in close, it gets even worse. I don't think it's Johnny DeFeo, not at all. One, because I don't believe in ghosts, and two, it doesn't look like a kid to me, because when you look closer at this, you can see that there's the rest of the body through the railing. You can see through the railing supports that you see a shirt here, and the shirt looks to be a plaid shirt. Let me get that up there a little bit. There you go. You can see that a little bit more. You can see the stripes of the plaid shirt. Now, there was another person there that night that also not only wore a plaid shirt, but was in that room. And that would be this guy, Paul Bartz. Now, Paul Bartz is described usually as another investigator there with Ed and Lorraine Warren, that he was part of their crew or their team, and he was there investigating the house, which he probably was. But we also learn from a later newspaper article, and I'm going to put that up on the side here, that he was also their agent. So Paul Bartz was Ed and Lorraine Warren's agent. So it's, you know, I really hate accusing people directly of a hoax, especially because Paul Bartz is not with us anymore and he can't defend himself. Neither can Ed and Lorraine Warren. But it does show a little bit of motive, because he had a reason to make sure that, you know, something might happen, or if something was mistaken, like, you know, maybe a picture of him as a ghost was, he keeps the mistake going, you know, instead of exposing it, he keeps the mistake going because he has a vested interest in it. So this is not new. This is not something that I came up with. I want to make that clear. I didn't discover this myself. It's been out for years where people have thought that Paul Bartz was the person behind this this photograph. In fact, I was able to get in touch with a person that wanted to remain anonymous. He didn't want his name out there. So, but I did talk to him and verify that he did communicate with Paul Bartz. He sent this email out to him before Paul Bartz passed away, and asking if he was indeed the person in the photograph. And the response that we get from Paul Bartz is interesting. It says a lot without actually saying anything. And it says here, "I am convinced that we experienced an extraordinary, cunning, and evil presence in that house, and attempted to verify it with photography and other means. The image in the photo you mentioned does resemble me, and I know that Ed, now deceased, and Lorraine went on record, including national TV, stating it was a ghost. Because I have great respect and admiration for them, I will say no more on the issue, allowing the legend of the most haunted house in America to continue." So yeah, he doesn't openly admit that it's him, but he does give you enough of the information, enough information to say, hey, it was made, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to embarrass my past clients. That's what I get from that. So in addition, I want to just put up a few comparisons here because, even though I said this was not new information, and it's really not, but like I said, for the past couple years, people have been saying that this is the gentleman in the shot. And you know what? When you do it side by side like this, it really does look like him. I actually overlaid it, but it doesn't look good when you overlay it. It still looks a little fuzzy because this is so fuzzy and this was a little bit more sharper image. But side by side, you can see similar face, especially up here, the part of the hair where the hair goes off to the side here. It's exactly the same. It matches up perfectly. And then the striped pattern for the plaid shirt matches up, but it's different color. Like this one is lighter, this one is darker. So what's going on with that? What's going on with that is that there's a difference between the earlier photos that night, which was done with regular black and white film, and then later on that night when it was set up on a timer using infrared film. Infrared light and visible light, they look different when you do this kind of photography. They come up different. Material looks really different. And I'm going to show you some examples here that I did outside. Let's see here. Let me put up on a screen. So right here, there's a normal camera used up top two pictures. So this is a color photograph that I used, and I took two jackets that I have that have plaid, the plaid kind of design on it. And then I switched to black and white and took a shot. Not much difference, especially with this one on the left. But when you go to an IR converted camera, and what I did was actually I used a camera that had a modified. Where is it? Found it. Okay, so this is what I used. Let me zoom in a little bit here. This is my camera. It's a converted IR camera, so which means I took out the IR cut filter inside on top of the sensor, and I actually used a infrared pass filter. So this blocks out up to 720 nanometers of visible light. You can see it's pretty dark. You can see the reflection of my webcam, but it does pretty good, knocking out most of the visible light and then only letting infrared light in. So this is as close as I can get because, I mean, at 1976, you're talking cameras looked more like these with infrared film. But I don't have that, and I don't want to incur the expense of purchasing infrared film and getting it developed because it's a bit costly. So anyway, back to the pictures. So you can see here on the top, again, these were visible light cameras, normal cameras anybody can use, shooting in color and in black and white. And then over here, this is with the IR converted camera. And this was with, let's see, they were both with the filter. So both were shot with a filter. I used a little bit more flash on this one, and I got zoomed in a little closer. But you can see the difference, especially when you look the upper here, the normal one, black and white, and this one, you can see how it changes from a light colored pattern, a more light colored plaid pattern, which is what the code is, to this one right here, and it becomes darker. So big difference. So when we go back to the picture of Paul Bart's next to what is probably him leaning out the doorway, we can see that, yes, the reversal of this plaid shirt is just in line. It's in line with what we would expect to happen. We can see the stripes here, and we can see that it would be pretty much the same effect as in comparing these two, because you can see there's a thicker grid pattern, and then the grid pattern actually changes a little bit. You can see more lines here, going across. You can see lines here and going up and down, which you don't actually see unless you see the light colored ones here, which is big difference. I mean, all in all, this is saying, hey, you know what? This is him. This is him. To add on to that, I guess provide some more supporting evidence here. We have let's see, what is this? I'm going to go back to the pictures here. This is the newsletter for what was it? Morris College. Yes, let me get my glasses back on because I can't see anything without my glasses. I'm sure many of you can relate. So Morris College in, I'm not even going to try and say that. Oh, why not? Poughkeepsie, New York. That's what it says up here. But this is an interview with Paul Bartz. And we can see that down here, let's see, down here, and we're going to zoom in a little bit here so you guys can see it. So right here, it says, let's see, the presentation sponsored by the College Union Board's lecture committee includes facts on the famous house in Amityville, New York, and the Warrens' experiences in it, according to Paul Bartz, the Warrens' agent. So this is how we find out that Paul Bartz is not just another investigator that was just like in training or just along for the ride or there because he knew somebody. He was the Warrens' agent. So it was good for him to be there and he could help out and make sure everything's, you know, working out good. So if we keep going with this and we go to the next page of this article, it doesn't, that's not good. That's not a good. Let's look at this blow up. So this is the rest of the article here. And Bartz is talking about that night on March 6th when he's there. And this is confirming his location. That's why I'm adding this. So it says here, let's see, on that March weekend, most of the team went out for supper, leaving behind Bartz, Ed Warren, and one cameraman, which presumably is Eugene Campbell, who was taking the infrared photographs. And then you got Ed Warren, who, you know, likes to exploit people and hoax shit. Anyway, so let's see. The cameraman stayed on the main floor. Warren went into the cellar, and Bartz went up to a bedroom on the second floor and spread out on his back. All the lights were turned off. So this is telling us that Bartz was on the second floor. He was by himself, and that he definitely could have, let's see, there it is. So you can see it there. He definitely could have been this person that leaned out. And I have no doubt it was. And the little part that I want to add myself here is that not only did I show you some infrared pictures, you know, comparing it to visible light pictures, but I want to show you what it looks like when someone is wearing such a shirt. So here we go. Let's see. This is me in my second floor, on my second floor. Unfortunately, it's not as grand as the Amityville house, so it's kind of tight, so I could not get it a decent shot through the railing, through my banister here. But this is me at the end of the hall, wearing a plaid shirt. And then the next picture is the same angle. I changed cameras, did not change the lens. I swapped lenses, so it was the same lens, same flash power. And let's see, there we go. And that's what it looks like when you take an infrared shot. And again, this is with an IR converted camera with an infrared pass filter. And then I'm going to, that's a side-by-side. That's what I want to show you, a side-by-side picture showing you the difference that can happen. And if I brighten these up, if I actually brighten these up to, well, hell, let's do that. Let's brighten them up a little bit more because, I mean, hell, we can do that, right? It's our blog. It's our video blog. We can do whatever we want. So now we are looking at Photoshop, and this is the side-by-side, and we're going to adjust the, let's see, let's just go easy route here and convert it to newspaper or, yeah, newspaper. We'll brighten it up there. We'll adjust the contrast a bit because when we're looking at the newspaper article, it's definitely a high contrast picture, and you can almost say, wow, I mean, that's pretty bad. But you can see the difference. If I adjust the contrast and lightness of this, you can see how drastically different this becomes. It becomes the opposite of what you would see in visible light, which is exactly what I was going for. I wanted to show you, like, yes, this is definitely possible. And lastly, I want to just point out that this looks like his shirt, but then here it actually looks like his hand is right here, his arm, and it's leaning on his knee. So it looks like he's almost squatting or maybe sitting. and leaning out, kind of doing like one of these kind of things, and you're getting this view. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that this is Paul Bart's. And I hope I haven't said that like 1,000 times and annoying the hell out of you. But I'm pretty sure it's him. I have no doubt. The only detail that really stands out that is hard to replicate is the eyes. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So we see in the ghost boy here, his picture, even though he has the plaid shirt and he has the same hairstyle as this guy, he's got these reflective eyes. And the most common excuse is that he's wearing glasses. So whoever this person was, they were wearing glasses and it reflected either the flash or it had something to do with the infrared light. Now, for me, I attempted this for several hours. I used the glasses that I have on. Let me show you there. I used these glasses. I used what else did I use? Different glasses. I have a ton of glasses because I can't read without glasses. So I have a whole bunch of different glasses, and I was trying it, and it was very difficult to get the flash to jump off of my glasses and into the camera. They're either like on the wrong angle. Like, I mean, if I look up, you can see the ring light, but when I'm looking at the screen, you probably see the screens, like my monitors in front of me, but you can't see my ring light. And that's the problem, trying to get the right angle. And even when we look close at this, it's very difficult to see if there's actually glasses on this person. We don't see any glasses. I don't see any bridge going across the nose. There's this little point of reflection here, but it could be something in the background or it could be his hair, which he had long hair. If we look, let's see. Here's a picture that we can see. That's him. He's got long hair, but he's not wearing glasses. This is a larger picture of that same pose. We can see in this picture, and I'm sorry it's blurry. I'm trying to get better images, but the original images are not available. I can't get a hold of them. But here again, here's another picture. He's not wearing glasses. Let's see. Is there any others do I have? I think, oh yeah, I do have, let's see. I have that one, which I think I showed earlier, but he's not wearing glasses. Again, nothing indicating that he has glasses. Just a very young looking face. So do I think he has glasses on? I don't. For me, and this is the weird thing. I thought maybe at first I actually thought he was in the sewing room, sitting in the sewing room because I had my floor plan mixed up. So I thought he was in the sewing room of the Amityville house. And then I started thinking, like, what could be in a sewing room that might reflect light? That someone, and I'm totally going with the idea that if he intended to hoax a photo, because if he was sitting up there, we know he was sitting up there on the second floor. We know he was alone up there. We know that the camera was there, and there's no doubt that he knew that the camera was on the second floor landing. There's just no doubt, because one, these old cameras, they make some noise. They click. The motors, when they advance the film, you can hear it. You can definitely hear it. It makes a lot of noise. It's also, you have rolls of 24 or 36 exposures. So if there were a lot of rolls being shot, then every 24 or 36 shots, the photographer would have to come up and change the film out. So there was no doubt that Paul Bartsch knew where it was. So again, I was thinking, like, what could be in the sewing room? And my wife has a sewing kit. She does a lot of fabric and arts and crafts and stuff. So I actually went and she helped me look through different things. And we had like these shiny kind of almost rhinestone things. And I did some pictures with them, and it kind of looked okay. But then when I realized that this shot was not of the sewing room, this is actually, let me see if I can get the picture up here again. So this is not the sewing room. The sewing room is actually here behind the railing. You can see part of the doorway up here, but this is Missy's room. And then I thought, all right, what would somebody have? And my wife, Donna, actually came up with this idea. She's like, well, what about a couple nickels? Like regular nickels. I went and took two nickels out. I'm like, they're pretty shiny. So I did it. I went back down in the basement because I had this when I was doing all these tests trying to get good photographs. I was down in my basement for several hours. Well, I was up here on the second floor doing the shots of me in infrared and invisible light. I did that for about an hour, and then I went down the basement trying to get a good reflection of like my glasses. But I went back down and I took a few pics with nickels. Like I went down to the end of my basement and I crouched down behind a chair and I stuck two nickels onto my eyes. And the resulting image, the first try actually came out really, really good. All right, so here is that picture. This is the picture. This is my basement. Yes, I have a lot of stuff in here. Free plug, I have a mystery museum, which is all a bunch of stuff that people have sent me that is allegedly cursed or haunted. It's not. It's not at all. But I keep it on display just to show people that you know, yeah, you can play with this stuff. It's not really haunted. Anyway, so I was down there and you can see me over here. That's me. And that's what it looks like when I have nickels just pushed into my closed eyes. That's what it looks like. And when you compare it side by side, this is what you have. You have the ghost boy here and me over here. My photo is a little bit sharper, definitely because I'm using a high resolution camera, and I tried to make it as bad. I bumped down the resolution to try to get to this grainy infrared film look, but you can still tell it's definitely much clearer. But I mean, it looks really, really good. It looks really close, and I'm convinced that it might have been something like this. I can't say for sure. You definitely can't say for sure because, you know, when you accuse someone of a hoax, you really have to have good evidence. But this is telling me, oh, we got something. We got something. I mean, it really turned out a lot better than I expected. And I did multiple shots. I took maybe 20 or 30 more shots. Sometimes one eye would light up, sometimes the other, sometimes both, sometimes neither, depending on how I was looking at the camera. So this might have been, there's two scenarios, three maybe. One is that it was just a lucky shot. You know, he knew the camera was there and he was like, you know what? These are my clients. I need to make this look good. Maybe I can help them out. No one's around. No one can see me. Let me stick two nickels in my eyes and lean out. And he just leaned out until the camera went off. And if he was up there long enough, he probably would know the intervals at which the camera was taking pictures. So he might have been able to at least get close to the timing so that he wasn't standing there, you know, or sitting there for 10, 15 minutes waiting for the shot to take off. So there's either, yeah, he got a lucky shot, or maybe that there are other shots in that we're not seeing, because again, like I only saw like 6 copies of this angle, this scene where it's the second floor. There's not rolls and rolls of pictures that were developed that are available for us to look through, at least not for me, that I could access. And then the other scenario is just that maybe he did have glasses on. I don't see why, because I mean, when you look at this picture, he's sitting in the dark. It's dark in there. All the lights were off. I don't know why he would have glasses on. If he didn't wear glasses the entire night, there's no reason to have glasses on when you're sitting in the room in the dark by yourself, not reading anything, not doing anything, just sitting there. So I don't think that theory holds. So that's pretty much it for my analysis of the Amityville Horror photographs, the Padre Pio photograph, and then the Ghost Boy photograph, which is probably the most famous photograph. And I mean, for such a famous case that had a really crappy book, because honestly, I read this last week for the first time, and I was not impressed at all. I mean, quick book review, it sucked. It wasn't scary. It was not anything. I mean, it really pissed me off that they had, in this book, they say they collected buckets of that green slime and then dumped it into the river, but didn't keep any. So I was like, what? You have all this stuff. There's no samples. There's no pictures of it. There's nothing. Oh, horrible book. Horrible book. But anyway, So I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to Skeptical Inquirer. It's a great magazine. I write for it, the print magazine, once in a while. I also have the online column called A Closer Look. You can look it up for my name. And also, free plug, I do a live stream show every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's on YouTube and Facebook. Come check it out. But otherwise, if you have any topics, put them in the comments. If you have topics you want to talk about, or if you have additional information on the topics that I do talk about, please reach out to me. I'm always ready to consider new information. And with that, I will say, never stop learning, and I'll see you next time.